Hello, I'm Matthew Malcolm with Pacific Nut Producer Magazine, reporting to you from the annual summer tour and meeting of the Nut Growers Society. I'm here with Nick Wyman. He's the Hazelnut Extension Specialist at Oregon State University. Led a great panel discussion today talking about the ice storm damage that occurred on Valentine's Day of all days. A very unpleasant surprise that did quite some severe damage to a certain region of our hazelnut growing areas, right? Can you tell us a little about it?
So the storm was mostly in the northern Willamette Valley, and it affected mature orchards, which a lot of them have a fair bit of eastern filbert blight in them. So there's a lot of weak wood from disease, and also pruning for blight management leads to wood rots, and so it was tremendously damaging on the mature orchards. But we also had a lot of damage to younger orchards with the newer varieties, where there was just such a thick ice buildup on the branches that they folded over onto the ground. Many of them split all the way to the ground, and a lot of branches are just now starting to show the effects of being hyperflexed from all the ice that was on them during that storm.
Hyperflexed. Can you clarify? I don't quite know what you mean.
Well, I mean, there were just branches that didn't break off at the time of the storm that were definitely weakened from being bent so far by all the tremendous weight from that ice. So the storm hit a really bad time on the young trees when we're in full pollination. So the trees were loaded with catkins, which act like sponges. They were absorbing the rain, and then when the rain turned to ice, it just added tremendous weight to the canopy of these trees, and that's what really stressed the branches and caused a lot of trees to split down to the ground.
So for these orchards that were impacted, what would you say as far as percentage loss? Loss in productivity or loss in trees altogether?
Well, I know for some of the mature orchards, some of the orchards were just completely devastated. So in a way, it sort of pushed some growers to completely replant with the new eastern filbert blight resistant varieties, which is a good thing for the industry in the long run. Many people have been sort of delaying the inevitable. They know they have these diseased orchards that they need to replant, but they're still producing enough nuts that it's an economically viable operation. So this storm kind of pushed a lot of those folks over the edge and convinced them to replant. And then on the younger trees, we still don't really know the full effects. I think many of the growers thought it was going to be a lot worse than it is turning out to be. In many cases, there was a substantial amount of nuts lost, but the trees seem to be recovering pretty well. So hopefully it won't be a real long-term impact, but we do seem to be having these storms more frequently. Just a couple years ago, there was a big one in the southern valley, and a few years before that, there was another one. So it seems to be becoming just a semi-regular occurrence, and I think it happens enough to where it's something that we need to sort of prepare for, try to strive to make our orchards as resilient and as strong as possible to resist these storms.
Yeah, and on that subject of preparation, what can you do to prepare for a natural disaster like that?
Well, I think there's some really basic things that we can do with our tree training, and it's just making sure that we have good tree structure, striving for really strong scaffold branch angles, U's instead of V's, because hazelnuts, they really like to make these sharp crotch angles, and they end up with bark included into the crotch, and that makes for a lot of weakness when there's a lot of weight put on the canopy. So a lot of the trees that I saw split to the ground, you could see where bark had been included into the crotch. So a lot of it's just managing that initial tree structure, getting a really good tree shape going. Another thing is a lot of our growers are planting double density. You do not want to wait too long to remove that double density because as soon as trees start competing for light, they become taller, and they start to grow really in a vertical pattern, which makes them top heavy when a storm like this comes along and adds a lot of weight to the top of that canopy.
Yeah, so with our older orchards, What do you recommend that they do? Like keep the tops from getting too high for the weight purposes. What would you say? Because there are a lot of older orchards out there still.
Yeah, we have about 35,000 acres of the old mature plantings. Definitely there's a few things you can do. A lot of growers are starting to adopt mechanical hedging in these mature orchards. It's been going on for a while, but I think it is increasing. And they're doing that for eastern filbert blight, but also to reinvigorate the canopy, to stimulate new production of new wood, to keep the orchard invigorated. But
it keeps the canopy open and the light penetrating, right?
Correct. But it also can help in these storms as well, because typically you're going to have a lot less big diameter type of branches structure up in the upper canopy. So there's it changes the shape of the tree and makes it more resilient to the ice.
Right. Well, hey, thank you for the update. Obviously, we don't wish this tragedy upon anyone, but like you said, it's something that could happen any winter, and please keep these things in mind, and we look forward to visiting with you again. Read more about these things in Pacific Nut Producer Magazine. I'm Matthew Malcolm, PacificNutProducer.com.